Hello. Thank you to Abraham and Jerry and Esther and everyone who has sat in this hot seat for me.
And
been
all
great.
people who have come before, all who have experienced contrast, all who have laid the platform for that which I am. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you for all. Thank you for that
Thank
which
you.
I have been before. Thank you for that which I am now. This is a good prayer of appreciation, you know.
Yes. So I have some questions about the law of attraction. It seems to keep coming back up today, but maybe this will just kind of end it.
Hopefully not, because we wouldn't have anything to talk about. It's all we ever talk about.
That's right. So if the law of attraction and vibrations are the first and foremost sort of point,
Basis.
yeah,
It's the basis of all that is.
then how, and we're talking about the pies, how did 6 million people of Jewish descent attract such, not death? I mean, if they all went in one day, it wouldn't have been so tragic, but that despair, that suffering that they endured.
Well, we will answer your question, but before we do, we want to say to you, have you seen the Holocaust monument?
No.
That is perpetuating the vibration of same still?
Right, I avoid.
In other words, if you were around the kitchen table of some of those who were affected in that way, knowing what you know today about moving up the emotional scale, you would have found them in vibrational alignment with that because nobody else created their movie. So there's a big question. How do large numbers of people have catastrophic simultaneous sort of experiences? And we say, we don't understand how you cannot understand that when you hang around with one another and you talk about things in the way that you do, and you talk about victimhood and you talk about injustice and you beat the drum of unfairness, how could anything other than someone to fulfill that vibrational escrow happen? In other words,
Okay,
it's
so it's
happening
like the
even today.
cancer,
Millions of people are beating those kinds of drums and creating future holocausts.
Okay.
And then in their negative emotion, they are marching diligently toward it. And someone will come and be the fulfiller of that. For many, it is George Bush fulfilling it today. In other words, there are many people, not necessarily in your nation, but in other countries, that see him as the fulfiller of this unwanted thing, you see?
It seems like so many people were living like these nice little lives, and then all of a sudden they're on a train and sort of, and maybe it was over years, so I don't really, maybe I'm not really looking at it from,
you can't read the crib notes on it, and you can't go to the movie and see the short version of it and get any true sense of what the vibrational essence of it was. But we have to say to you, for every one that died in that way, there were many, 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 many more who didn't. In other words, it didn't happen to everyone, so why didn't it happen to everyone? Because there were vibrational differences among them, you see. And it's even that way when you look around your society today. There are those that have just practiced the vibration that produces some things, and there are those that are practicing the vibration that produces other things.
Right.
And the thing that we really want you to hear, it's really touchy ground here, because we don't want to imply that everyone that died, or even everyone that died in that way, did it from a standpoint of miscreating. But we will say everyone who lives anything is a vibrational match to what they're living. The timing of everything is such, you see.
Okay.
There were people that were just weary of living.
Okay.
The same questions come up about the tsunamis or about the people that are in the Twin Towers. How do that many people have that negative experience? And we say, because you hang around with each other and you talk similarly and you get a similar vibration going and you dovetail in to the currents of things and then inevitable things happening. Here's the answer we really want you to hear. It's like one day Esther and some other joy-seeking teenagers went up onto the side of a hill and took a walk. They were having a very good time. And one of them leaned on a boulder, and the boulder moved a little. And so they all got it in their head that it would be fun to see if they could dislodge it. And they did. And it began to get away from them, and then it really got away from them, and then it really got away from them, and then it really got away from them, and it bounced right across the highway, and then was lodged in some trees on the other side of the highway. There was no stopping that. In other words, there were plenty of points that they could have done something differently.
Right.
But once that thing got going,
Gets rolling.
the momentum of it as it dovetails into the river or the current or the stream. So everybody who complains about anything contributes a little bit to the stream, and the stream begins to flow. And people look at the results of the stream and give Satan or the devil the credit for the stream, when it is only the spin-off of man's disconnected mind that ever puts anything into that stream. So then the stream gets going pretty good. And then as the stream is going pretty good, you're moving along unaffected by the stream, but then you give your attention to different things, and sometimes you get swept up into the stream.
Okay.
That's the best way of describing that we can.
Thank you.
The thing that we really want to say to you is, if you were paying attention to the way you feel, you could feel yourself moving toward that. Esther
Right.
can still remember today the reluctance she felt with going with those kids up the hill that day. And she can remember the feeling that she felt when one of them got the bright idea to dislodge that boulder. In other words, she can remember the feelings, and she could have stopped it and not been a part of it any point along the way, and no real harm came from it. In other words, it was not a vibrational match to anything tragedy, but it was a vibrational match as far as she was a vibrational match, and it is always the same for everyone, you see.
Okay.
Our message to you is, if you don't want to end up as part of something really big that you don't want, then when it feels really small and really uncomfortable, choose another thought. You just can't dabble in those things that don't feel good without getting closer and closer and closer to that stream. And eventually you're going to get swept up in it, and people are going to watch you, and they're going to say, oh, that was an innocent bystander just getting swept up in the stream. And we say, what was she doing with her toes in the stream?
Right.
Why was she so near the current that is sweeping?
Yeah. Okay.
Little kids in Los Angeles played in the drainage ditch every day. They used to go down there and ride their bicycles, and one day the flash flood came through, and the little girls were just sitting there, and they just thought it would be fun to put their feet in the water. And just putting their feet in the water, they were drawn right into it. They were rescued, but they were surprised at the current. Sometimes you don't realize the velocity of a thought, or the velocity of a current, or the velocity of a stream. And sometimes it's interesting to you. A lot of times people make the decision about the proximity to something not based on how it feels. Esther watched the presidential debates. Can you believe that? And her excuse was, it's interesting. It's interesting. She wasn't using the criteria, does it feel good? How does it feel? She was using the criteria. It might be interesting. And so there are all kinds of criteria that you use for giving your attention to different things. Very often you're pushing very hard against something that you do not want, and you feel utterly justified in pushing very hard against something that you do not want. But in all of that, you are choosing a vibration that is getting you closer and closer to the momentum, and you will sooner or later be swept up in anything that you have been practicing. Something wonderful or something horrible.
My underlying question, well, maybe if I ask this second part of the question, so another law of attraction question, like Jesus died on the cross. I mean, this is what people in certain parts of the world believe. And if that were true, it kind of doesn't make sense, because being the man he was, he would certainly not have.
Well,
And so then the underlying question is with, the intentions we were talking about earlier, is there some kind of sacrifice that humans are doing to?
No.
Okay.
And we would also like to say to you that no one who is in human form is ever always connected to source energy. And some are more than others, and some are to a higher degree, and some are to a larger extent or more often. But your connection to source, or your connection to your own desires, is not something like a college degree where once you achieve it, it is yours forevermore. It either is or it isn't in the moment. Okay. And if you listen back to what you are reading about, you will, in other words, there is some information available to let you know that that was a time when there was not alignment. Same for him. Good time for a segment of refreshment in that case. No point in wasting words on ears alone. We are complete.
Thank you.